my name is Sarah. Thank you to everybody who is listening to this video. This video will be about the effects of pediatric leukemia treatment on fertility. So I have done this topic for an assignment in one of my classes. And I chose this topic because not only does it really interest me, just cancer in general, but a lot about pediatric cancer. Pediatric means children, in case you didn't know. So I found a very big interest in this, but I also chose this topic because it relates specifically to me. I had leukemia when I was 11 and I finished when I was about 14. So I went through treatment, different types of treatment, which I will explain later and just incorporate my story a little bit more into it as I go on through like facts and then my story, just back and forth. And then in the end, I'll answer some questions that I've gotten from like family, friends, the internet, social media, those types of things. So thank you for sticking around. I hope you enjoy what you're hearing. So I'm gonna start with just explaining some of the treatments used. But to begin first, cancer is a mutation of certain cells in your body, and they just rapidly grow and don't stop, and then that's what causes cancer. It's just rapidly growing cells that cannot be stopped very easily. So leukemia specifically is cancer of the blood. So there is a mutation in your bone marrow, and it affects your red blood cells, your white blood cells, all those types of cells. For my story, there was a lot of time, about 3 or 4 weeks, I'd been having this really weird cough. It was always a dry cough, and at first it seemed like maybe I just had a cold, but then we realized like a cold shouldn't last 4 weeks. We were like, what? So we ended up going to the doctor, and they were like, here, have some antibiotics, maybe that'll help. Didn't help. So they were like, okay, since it's not helping, let's just do a chest x-ray to make sure that everything's okay. So they did a chest x-ray, got the results, and I had a mass on my chest, on my left lung. So they were like, you need to get to the hospital ASAP. So I went to the hospital, and that's where they figured out after tests, and then I actually crashed. crashed. Yeah. So after they did tests and stuff, they finally figured out that the mass was a bunch of cells of leukemia cancer that had piled up into my lung, or into the spacing between my lung and what you call the pleura. So it's called the pleural space. So a bunch of cells had just piled up in there, and it was causing me to like have a really hard time breathing, and it was causing this cough. So once they figured that out, they were like, okay, it's leukemia. So then they were like, okay, we need to now figure out a treatment plan for you and see what will work best, and then go from there. So I'm gonna go back to what the treatments are, and then I'll tell you again what my treatments were. So in general, for specifically leukemia, they'll use chemotherapy, radiation, and bone marrow transplants. Sometimes all 3 can be used, sometimes just 1, sometimes 2 of them. It all just depends. So chemotherapy is like usually a liquid IV, not like the drink that you have. It's just in an IV, and it pretty much kills the cancer cells. And then you also have radiation, which is a beam that they shoot down, and they have it aimed specifically at the spot that they want to reduce the number of cells and kill the cells. So they have that, and that's radiation. It just like kills them. And then a bone marrow transplant is for those who either cannot produce healthy cells at all, or just need a little bit of help because it's just not going as well as they'd hoped. So they take a bit of your bone marrow out with a screw looking tool. It actually looks really painful. For kids, they do knock us out. We get anesthesia or anesthetics or something, and we don't feel it, which is great. We love that because adults have to be awake for these things, which is awful. So awful. But so they take some of yours out, and then they take some out from another person that matches you. So a lot of times it's like a family member that they'll take it from, but it's just kind of like any donor match, but just doing bone marrow is a lot easier than other organs because it's just a tiny piece of it. It'll grow back. They'll be fine without it. So they take that sample from the other person and then they put it back into you. And that just works to help create healthier cells and helps your body to get like a little kickstart pretty much. So those are the 3 used mainly for leukemia. Another one that can be used for other cancers is like surgery. So if somebody has a tumor, they can do surgery to remove it. Mostly they just do it for the tumors, or like, for example, breast cancer, they'll sometimes, because of the tumor, they'll go in, they'll get out the tumor, and then the woman will have to have a mastectomy usually, which means just like reducing the size of the breasts. So that's another one. Also, yeah,